And welcome back once again to the PCS Summer. Week 3 has gotten off to a absolutely rocking start. Some incredible games already in this one. We still got 3 more to go for the day. Now, I am Pyrotechnics. He is Clement. And our sponsors, of course, are right there on the screen. How convenient. CTBC Bank, China Airlines, and Chunghwa Telecom, thank you for helping to make the PCS possible. Now, Clement, we had some clashes at the top of the table. Now we're going to get one right smack dab in the middle. J-Team taking on Hong Kong Attitude. And it'd be hard-pressed to find 2 teams that seem, honestly, pretty evenly matched.
Hong Kong Attitude, the one that is coming up a little bit more surprising there. They did have a master roster rehaul coming in, and they are going to be running with Hongsuo and K once more coming into this one. So, I feel like this is a team that is trying to find their identity. They are grasping things left and right, going against a very established team, on the other hand, from J-Team. J-Team, you know what they're doing. They have very strong laning phases. They like to play compositions with range advantages and just have you run into them repeatedly. They are very great individually, but their downfall has sort of been that engage category where they don't always make the best use of their opportunities, which I feel like Hong Kong Attitude has been a team that is, very on the opposite side. Hong Kong Attitude is very much a red side draft team. They like to play low to the ground. They do have pretty good engages when it comes to it from Kongyu's side, and we are going to have that sort of clash of styles. A team that is very strong in laning phase, but likes to play for a little bit later, against a team that can be a little bit wobbly, but likes to go super hard, super early.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see which of those 2 styles bear out. We've talked about the jungle on the opposite side. Kongye for Hong Kong Attitude really steps up, delivers a lot of damage for his team. I think it's an interesting story with the jungler on this side. For J-Team, Hana he sets up a lot of plays for his team, more of a catalyst role rather than a carry. And I think that is kind of at the heart of what these 2 teams are trying to do and what separately the win conditions are. But there is the Hong Kong Attitude roster for today. Rock in the top side, Kongye in the jungle, Hongsuo, as you mentioned, starting in mid. Eminem and K, of course, back in support position, will be starting.
Yeah, and Hong Kong Attitude, for me, they are really interesting as a team because I feel like they're one of the few tempo teams that can actually play super aggressive but aren't in our top 3. Typically, all of our tempo-based teams are in the top 3, with PSG leading the bunch, of course. But on the other hand, Hong Kong Attitude, we have seen them play very aggressive in lanes and have a jungler that scales better into the late game. And that's what we get out of Kongye with his AP junglers in the Diana and the Gwen specifically. They do play to cover him and have him carry in turn later on. Well, it's a very different story on the other hand for Hana. Hana is definitely early utility, early ganking, mainly for rest lane actually, which is, I find, kind of the interesting part. Despite Mission also being a very strong lane, rest is the much more common pairing that we see with Hana.
And the interesting thing is, if you compare the kill participation, that's actually number 1 and number 2 in the league, but for very different reasons. And you look at how it stacks up with things like the First Blood. Kongye plays to get the kills. Hana plays to set his lane up, in particular to set rest up. But it's funny how they kind of come out number 1 and number 2 when they're getting in the mix regardless. So I do think this is a really cool head-to-head to watch. I'm excited to see how it all unfolds, especially here on the 11.14 meta.
Yeah, I love the point that you said about having high kill participation for different reasons. J-Team across the board have very high kill participation because they like to play team fights. Hong Kong Attitude, Kongyu has very high KP because he is the main carry of the team. He actually is the dude that the team kind of plays around and waits for to get to his level, later levels at level 16 and just carry them with the Gwen. So we will see if J-Team try to target out his main champions. The go-to strategy for Hong Kong Attitude has been that Diana, so J-Team already taking it off the board. On the other hand, Gwen is something that J-Team can actually afford to pick up themselves on the blue side especially. This is something that I feel like Rust is actually very comfortable with doing, so they are leaving that open and throwing that hot potato over to Hong Kong Attitude.
We'll see if that ends up being what the last ban of this first phase is. J-Team, Hong Kong Attitude right next to each other in the standings here at the end of the round robin, seeing if they can pick up a win over the competition. I think you really called it a match to see who would be the gatekeeper of the top 6 in the league. And I do think this is going to be somewhat definitive. That hot potato is going to be banned. No Gwen for this game.
Yeah, I kind of expected this. There really hasn't been a lot of good answers to Gwen that we've seen in the league. Rest likes using Gnar. We haven't seen the Jax come out whatsoever, and for me, it's understandable that they're just going to take that one out. Hongsuo, one of the most exciting rookies that we've seen so far. He probably is the definitive rookie of the split, if I had to judge right now. He's been showing great performances on these solo pick carries. He has shown that he can play tempo, and this is going to be his debut on LeBlanc. But with Ruby having such a good showing, I kind of get a feel that everyone in this league has now picked up LeBlanc, and she's just the de facto sort of go-to champion. In the past, we wouldn't have seen this many LeBlancs if Lissandra was up. Lissandra still has a 100% win rate in that matchup. But as we've seen from the previous game, sometimes it's worth it to have the opponent's best player on something like a Lissandra. And I think that's definitely the case with Mission and putting him on the Lissandra. You can still count that as sort of a win for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I still think JT might go for it, though. They don't have to right away, at least, because this is something Mission's been very comfortable on, still finding himself able to dish out a lot of damage. Now, you do have the Xin Zhao. We didn't talk about this as much with the LeBlanc pickup for Hongsuo, but this is the first time Xin will be left open in this particular day, or this particular day of play. Bottom lane filled out for J-Team as they do get the Varus Braum combo. And Hong Kong Attitude, are they going to pick themselves a bot laner here or wait for the bans to go through? Kongye certainly has preferred this Lee Sin over most champions, except maybe Diana. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see this locked in. And as the timer ticks down, they switch at the last second. And that is a Graves. We've seen one already. He did get a bit of a buff on this patch to base damage.
Yeah, the buff honestly was a bit of a place. It was a bit of a placeable buff. It's just like a sugar pill, and I don't think the 280 actually matters all that much. But I can't see it being better than the Lee Sin. Lee Sin, of course, again, as a melee champion, you run into Xin Zhao. There's not a whole lot you can do. As the Graves, you still have more chances to dodge out of the W and still get away from the E. If he catches you, you're going to die a lot faster, but, you can avoid the initial engage slightly easier on the Grave, so I think that's why they're picking it. And also, as we said before, Kongre is still the main damage. He's not the main damage dealer, but he is clearly the main carry that Hong Kong Attitude play around, so it probably makes sense to have him on something like a secondary AD carry rather than something that is more utility-based like the Lee Sin. Hong Kong Attitude, when given the chance, they're still going to take away the opposing mid laners. Rise is still up, but Rise, kind of interesting, isn't really a mission champion. You don't really see him going for that much. And for JT, it does look like they are setting up some form of a poke composition. I wouldn't be particularly surprised if we get a Jace coming out from mission, given this setup. And I like Hong Kong Attitude considering the Ashe with the potential for engage here. Oh, well, they go for the Aphelios.
Yeah, Aphelios is still a very powerful champion across the board. Eminem has played it at least once so far in the split. I think it slots in all right, so they're going to be okay locking that in. Now we get to see what the final picks are. Akali flashed. There was a time not too long ago when that would be an insta-pick, but it's not happening. Not on 11.14. It's a bold new world. And a lot of Flash champions here as the timer ticks down, but Rise ends up being the pick for Mission. Okay. Or is it?
It should be the Rise. We have seen a lot of players, they do like the Rise matchup into the LeBlanc. Of course, you have hard CC, so it does make her think twice about coming in and opening up on you. But, as we said, it's not a champion that Mission has played a lot of, so I'm kind of surprised to see it, and I'm really interested to see how he will do on it. Rise is a champion that requires a lot of team coordination, especially with the Realm Warp, and that's frankly not something that J-Team is particularly known for, but we'll see how it pans out. On the other hand, we do have the Camille coming in as the last pick. This is one of those champions that has really picked up a lot of attention in week 2. We saw Lee Kai and Ozzy go towards this champion, and what we've seen is if you control Camille in the late game, then you control the pacing of the game because she's so good on the side lanes as a split pusher, and she could just spread away the enemy team. She's also great on the collapse on the other side when you go on the 4-man. So a lot of different ways you can play this. She really fits both sides of the bill incredibly well. But on the other hand, we have the River King, This is the big champion on 11.14. It went for 56 in terms of win rate, all the way to number 1 for top lane. And with a slight buff to, actually not just even a slight buff, a lot of his kit has been upgraded. His W gets cooldown reduction now from ability haste after he hits a target, helps him get multiple engages in team fights, and he also has that extra base healing on his Q. Also puts an extra acquired stack on you if he lands his tongue lash. So just a huge ton of functional changes to Tahm Kench. And then you layer that on top with the buffs to Dead Man's Plate, and this champion is absolutely out of control.
Yeah, I was wondering when we were going to see the new and improved Tahm Kench. We already saw it previously in this league, but before the buffs all came in, and now it will go into the hands of Rock. So this top lane matchup, I think, is certainly going to be one to watch and see how it all works out. Looking across the board here, Clement, we've had a couple of interesting picks, especially on the Hong Kong Attitude side. I'm definitely keeping an eye on that Graves for Kongye and Hongsuo's debut on LeBlanc. Looking at the two teams, considering how closely they are in the standings, who do you give the draft to?
Looking at this overall, I do actually favor Hong Kong Attitude a little bit more. I feel like their draft strategy in terms of the matchup works really well against J-Team. So their identity is that they have 2 AD carries that are very easy to protect in the late game with Devour from Tahm Kench, and they're going to force J-Team to be the aggressors and to lock down these separate points of AD carries. They're just going to stand their ground, shoot at you. If you come in, then we're going to Devour, spit one out, or we're going to stun you with LeBlanc or Leona. And I feel like that's sort of a strategy where you force J-Team to be the aggressors, to really coordinate their engages, gives J-Teams a lot of problems. J-Teams, they are used to playing with range advantage. They're used to setting up siege and forcing you to be the aggressor on them. They're not really the best aggressor themselves. And I always feel like if you put J-Team into a difficult situation where they have to coordinate between multiple team members, they have to layer their engages, then they tend to end up on the back foot. That being said, though, I feel like J-Team, their composition is still very, very strong. There's a lot of S-tier picks here coming in from Camille to Rise to Varus. Like, honestly, this draft, in terms of the caliber of champions, is very, very good. And I'm only giving HKA the slightest of edges just because of the play styles between these two teams.
Well, there you have it. I still think it's going to be close across the board for sure. As we look to load up onto Summoner's Rift, I liked your line about the gatekeepers. Who is going to be the ones owning the keys to the gate of top 6 here in the PCS? Who will fall below them and be on the outside looking in? We're about to find out here. Had some exciting games already today. I don't have any reason to believe it's going to be any different here.
And we have some cheekiness right off the bat. A lot of times when you see the Camille Braum combo, you have to assume that something fishy is going on. And I like what Rock has done. He's placed an inner Tri-Brush ward and backed out. He knows there's a possibility that there will be a gank incoming, and he pays due respect to it.
Does mean on the opposite side that Hong Kong Attitude can maybe muscle in a little bit, but not able to get anything off of it. It does happen in plain sight of Lil V. And we're not done yet. They're going to throw down the ward in the red pit. Just trying to keep an inside track on Kongye.
Pretty standard runes across the board here. We do have double phase rushes. Kind of a rare sight these days, but definitely still works on these champions. I'm pretty interested in what we will get out of the Graves so far. As you mentioned, we did have a Graves mid laner coming out from Kanji earlier in the split. Did go for a full lethality build in that one. Of course, this one is it's going to go into the jungle here. Usually we have seen either it was the Immortal Shield Bowl builds or the Duskblade builds coming out. But we'll see if Kongye goes for either one here.
If I'm Kongye, I kind of feel like it's a Duskblade just because he's so aggro.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Like I could see a good reason to go for Black Cleaver as well in this one, just to get that armor reduction for M&M as well. And this is a fun thing to mention, but in the PCS, we really like Collector Aphelios builds. There's been a lot of those after the buff to Aphelios, giving him a little bit more armor penetration. if you get more armor reduce and then the armor pen, then armor pen is a stacking stat in terms of efficiency. The more you get, the more efficient it actually is. So we could see sort of that build come out as well, just to up Eminem's damage. But we'll find out later on in the game. Early on in the laning phase, I do expect the jungle pathing to go towards bot side for Hong Kong Attitude, and I actually think that J Team should probably pay more attention to the top side on their matchup. This is a matchup where Tahm Kench is incredibly powerful and he gets his items a lot sooner than most of the fighter classes on the other side. You think about Anathema's Chains that comes out at 2,500 gold, which is incredibly cheap. And on the flip side, for someone like Camille, you're usually going Divine Thunder in this matchup. So you do have a bit of that power spike after the first item. And Tahm Kench as a stat stick is just incredibly difficult to deal with, especially on this patch. So a little bit surprised that we are seeing the, J Team actually going for the bottom side, and the rest being forced out of his own lane.
Yeah, a little bit of an awkward hand wave there for sure to kick things off. Meanwhile, a little poke from Mission. Bottom side, as you mentioned, did seem to be a focus on J Team, but nothing comes of it. And we just have ourselves, despite a little bit of cheeky maneuvering before the minions spawned, a relatively quiet laning phase. It's nice and chill. Ooh, Rock Flash and the Splice logo. And then the FPX.
I wonder if there's
as a former EU caster, I appreciate it, Rock. Thank you.
I think I know what these emotes are. I'm pretty sure Rock is showing him the teams that Rest lost to at Worlds in 2019.
Oh my goodness, he prepped it up just for that.
Wow. I can't remember if Splice was in that group.
Next level BM.
But I'm sure that FPX was.
Yeah. That was fantastic. The emote game is on point.
Yeah, Rock really does his research for that. He's going the extra mile to take it to the BM King. Well done, well done.
Mm-hmm. He's not just the River King. He is now the BM King. All right. So a lot of pings actually happening down on the bottom side. J Team are wondering where. Well, now they know where Kongye is. Really getting a lot of deep warding actually has been kind of the priority to try and track this guy. I wonder if it's because they just don't want to deal with what the Graves can dish out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we probably won't expect to see him in the lane until 6. Well, as I say it, he wanders through lane. Never mind.
Yeah, he is completely spotted here, so I don't think J-Team's going to have any issue with that. I do like what JT was doing. They are supposed to have the lane priority in this situation, so they are going to be pushing forward a lot, and they just want to make sure that they're not going to get ganked on their way towards the tower and over-aggress here. Hana is going to try and do a little bit of a poke in because he did see Graves on the bottom side. He's going to try and steal away the Raptors. And this could be our first real conflict of the game right here. Actually, never mind. Hana's way too fast on this one. So, good move coming in from JT. And I do like this because it is giving a very solid lead towards the top lane as well. Top lane can be a pretty snowbally matchup. If Tahm Kench is behind, he's pretty much just dead. Like, he's a stat stick. There's not a lot of maneuvering you can actually do on this champion. So if you put him very far behind the curve, there's actually no coming back, and he just falls off to become a complete support champion.
Yeah, so Rest doing a good job here, and here we go. Kongye does come back in a round, but unfortunately not enough of a minion stack to really do anything about it. So while he continues to sniff around for these kills, not going to be able to find anything, and good defensive maneuvering, good clearing coming out of the J-Team bot side.
Yeah, pretty surprised that Kongye actually showed himself there, so they definitely know that he is on his Raptors at this point. And that was honestly never a dive, a dive that was never going to work. Lil V does have cleanse, and there's only one hard crowd control from K. So he can very easily reposition himself. I don't think there was ever a chance on that one. But, he shows up for good measure, for some moral support right there. And J-Team are just going to walk away, continuing to scale up in this one. And we're going to take a look at Mission's Rise right here. What we have seen is that the Rise has been able to shove out in this lane and also control LeBlanc roaming quite well. There's a lot of threat of just ganks coming in from the side brushes. You get the spell Flux onto LeBlanc, and you can just root her afterwards, which makes LeBlanc's life rather difficult. She can't just walk up in front of you to leave the lane. And we have seen this matchup kind of develop as a substitute when Lissandra is banned away.
Yeah, and I think one of the differences too, right, is the Rise definitely has a little more utility for getting the team to start out some of these fights in the later stages, so certainly looking to be more of a preference for J-Team. Meanwhile, speaking of J-Team, I really like what they were able to do to combo up Hana and Woody there to secure that first dragon, really just without being spotted at all.
Yeah, really
and,
smooth
Kongye continues to just steal away jungle here, but Mission and Hana are hot on their heels.
This is a 4v2.
Oh, yeah. Rock might just cover for his jungler. He knows he's a dead man. That's first blood. Oh, wait a minute. Rest is going to go Hextech Ultimatum. Here comes Mission. They're bringing everybody to the party. Good night, Kongye.
Oh, the exact opposite of the desired result right there. I can understand Kongye trying to get his top laner ahead, but I feel like it's a bit much for Rock to be behind the tower. That made the play incredibly obvious, and it was also at a timer where the Herald is just up. So you have to assume that the support might be in the vicinity, and it just seems like Hong Kong Attitude, they... Like, I don't even think J-Team pre-planned the roam from Woody. It was just the fact that the Herald was there and they wanted to take it, so... Hong Kong Attitude kind of unintentionally walked themselves into a massive trap. And that's what we call the self-bait.
Yeah, bit of an oopsie, and on top of it, Kongye also burns Flash, not even thinking that Rest had Hextech Ultimatum up and available easily to finish him off and trap him, and just for good measure, Mission cut off the escape route with the party portal. So J-Team will collect 2 kills, be very happy about that, and to top it off, they get Rift Herald in the mix.
Yeah, absolute disaster for this, and frankly, I think Rock is almost halfway out of this game.
Yeah, this Tonkench has not looked that hot.
Definitely has not. He's way too far behind. He's been pressured by the jungle, and then he's also lost his life in a very weird sort of telegraphed proxy. Like, yeah, that was definitely a misjudge on where Hana was going to be on the map. Like, you definitely would not proxy like that if you know mid lane has priority on Mission's part, and Hana might be on the top side of the map. If you know that Hana is there, then you definitely do not proxy like that. But they went for it anyway, paid a massive price, and now I feel like J-Team can just take any fight they want on the map. They probably can force things very, very hard.
They're throwing their weight around a little bit, but as you mentioned, the play style of this team has been kind of to let the other team come to them, and, well, it worked out once. I don't know if it worked out the way they intended it to, but it certainly did. They have been a bit of a swap here as Mission has gone down bot, but Woody has stayed with them. Well, it's just the Varus kind of free pushing mid. An interesting change-up, but Lilith seems to be totally fine with it.
I do like the rotation that they had coming in there. It was more of just making sure that someone was covering mid as Mission was moving up towards the topside collapse, and this is just a continuation of it. I do think they're going to swap back because they do have a winning matchup with the Varus versus the Aphelios anyway. So that was kind of a makeup rotation just to cover for mid lane for that brief period of time. And now they are going back to their standard wave. We do have the serrated Dirk already done from Varus, and this is definitely when he is sort of strongest in this matchup. K instantly flashes. Oof.
Yeah, K's has to flash away from that push out by Hana and Woody. And Hana just kind of scaring everybody as much as possible away from towers, away from just about anything, and that should be a number of plates here, and maybe more as the Rift Herald is popped. I think this is going to be first brick.
Yeah, there's no one on this side of the map, so against the 0 opposition, definitely going to be first brick here, and we are kind of seeing Hong Kong Attitude's strategy fall apart. We did mention this more of a late game team fighting strategy where you have 2 really fed 80 carries that are difficult to take down. But the early game push and the early game lanes have gone massively into J-Team's favor. Now he might seem a bit of a comeback. Rock trying to bait that because his jungler is in the vicinity. And I'm sorry, Rock, but I don't think any amount of taunting is going to make Rest go in on that.
And Rest is just doing it right back. Oh, man. Yeah, this game is starting to fall apart early for Hong Kong Attitude. Just a couple of mistakes, unforced errors. And now J-Team are just doing what J-Team do best, is just find those little advantages in terms of tower pushes. They already open up bot side. They're going to be an Infernal Dragon on the map in about 10 seconds, and everybody from J-Team is here to do it. And it's kind of the game pace that they want. They can just sit back and take things, and Hong Kong Attitude have to come to them, and they're not in a comfortable position to do so.
I feel like this game is pretty much riding on Eminem's shoulders at this point. He is still 200 years of Felios, and we have seen disgusting things being done, especially by On's Felios last week. That was sweet to watch. But Kongya might be trying to get his top laner ahead at this point. 3v1 dive.
Okay, well, Rock will eat rest up, and finally they will be able to find a kill back for themselves as Hongso will do it. And Rock even has time for a little bit more BM flashing. Meanwhile, the pressure continues from J-Team on the mid to try and pick off another plate before they fall. Eminem just eats skill shots from Lil and Woody.
This is exactly what I said, that they were still going to try to match up this 2v2. They are ahead in the tempo, and it's also just a winning matchup most of the time. So we are going to see them try to keep this up. Hongso doesn't have enough damage on Hana. I'm not sure.
Oh, they're going to tag in. Hongso will actually get the chains down onto Mission. Body block K is there. And do they have the damage? They do. Rock licks him.
Oh, that was such a good fake out. You could see that Hana took that hook, line, and sinker, went across. He went on the scenic route through the enemy double tower, and now he's going to die because...
All right, well, we talked about unforced errors on the Hong Kong Attitude side. I think a little bit of a great bait on that, but it's going to be Lil V that turns around. Rock and K are not done just yet, though. They go in. Woody is able to push them back, and now the turnaround teleport coming through. Rock's down. Kongye flashes the wall. K's trying to walk away, but he cannot get out from the hook shot. The tack sweep and rest helps his AD carry to a double kill.
Is Hana the mastermind of that play? Did he see two steps into the future and just walk that path?
Oh,
okay, never mind. Hongso's going to get his power flash.
Oh boy, he's rooted for ages right now, and in comes rest again. Hongsuo, though, is baiting. Wrong LeBlanc, unfortunately. In comes rest. Hextech ultimatum forces him to flash. What is happening? What are we watching right now? I don't understand this anymore. Oh, goodbye, Hongsuo.
I will say that was still pretty cool. He did get his one kill. He wasted a lot of time, even though it didn't work out.
Okay.
I felt like Hana was going to die after this walk of shame here. Chases the wrong LeBlanc way too far. But apparently, I just didn't know the limits of Hana. This is really good healing that he gets on the Raptor camp. And he baits Aphelios to his death. Eminem, the lone hope on Hong Kong Attitude, falls to his death after that one. Good collateral damage on the other end, and they finish off the kills.
Yeah, that terrain really helped out in this one, Clement. I think creates a little bit of a choke point that, you know, might not have to have otherwise dealt with, but sometimes the way the Drakes will fall.
Yeah, Lil V also gets a great snipe on the back of that with the piercing arrow. And now J-Team do have full control of this river, and it's going to be hard to walk against Chains of Corruption on that ramp. Indeed, here we go.
Yeah, they find one, they find K. Is not going to be a... Whoa, that Tom Kench just gets blown up. Looks like they will have a side of Catfish with their Shellfish, as Hongso is trying for the steal. Nice attempt, but, well, there is a Graves in this game, so there's no cigar, even if it was close. Meanwhile, Hongso getting pushed on by Hana. Chain stops him up. Xin Zhao, still pretty terrifying, turns out.
That was very ambitious from Rock. He did have his flash, but J-Team had an even better CC chain, taking him out before he could even pop the thick skin. So, well done on that play, and now they're just going to snowball this top lane as well. Right now, Rest is very far ahead of the curve, and both sides are trying to bait each other. This is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, there is Hongso solo in the brush, but missions brought friends. Hongso's out. He double distorts and runs around. This game does seem like it has just been like one continuous bait fest. Hongso cannot get away. Hana finishes him off, and a 3-0-3 Xin Zhao is terror to behold.
This is such a fun game to watch. Like, even though the game content itself is actually very one-sided, but both of these teams are just so cheeky. It makes the game so much fun. You can tell Rock is like kind of taking this personally. You know, he's flashing J-Team the remember 2019? Remember? You guys didn't make it out of groups. And J Team on the other hand are just like pounding Hong Kong Attitude to dust. Like they're so far ahead. It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. Like both teams are trying like pretty unorthodox strategies, high risk, high reward plays coming out from both sides.
It makes those individual plays a lot more like unpredictable, despite the fact that J Team are so far ahead. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can tell that Hongsuo's playing his heart out. He has gotten so many good individual plays. Meanwhile, J Team is having some fun, letting them know that they are indeed taking down the tower. The reason why they did that sequence was if you auto attack, you actually give the enemy team around that ward vision of yourself, and you auto attack once, you get your dance moves in, and then you take down the tower. Then you take down the ward here. So good sequencing there. Can't complain.
Oh yeah, Rock and K, Hongye trying to bait in the brush. Woody and Hana. It looks like they're going to stick on to Woody, and a little bit of a snack for Hong Kong Attitude. Looking for more. Not going to be able to find it. Meanwhile, looks like a tower. I believe it. Did the tower just go down? Yeah, Rift Herald is still doing Rift Herald things. Well, Hong Kong Attitude were going for the catch.
The sacrifice the Woody for the greater good play. I like this, and I'm really surprised that they didn't have this rise in their pocket a little bit earlier. Like mission in the side lanes gives them that 1-3-1 potential to close games out without hard engages. I think that's one of the greatest things about 1-3-1 setups for JT.
Oh no! The bush bait! We're not done, Clement! Oh, is he getting out? He is!
Okay, walk. If Rest's great escape last week was a 10 out of 10, I can only give that, I think, I'll give that a 4. He waited for the crowd control to disperse, and then he got out. So that's still great. But, you know, compared to Rest's great escape, that one was a pretty mediocre.
Yeah, just is able to take a little bit of a trip. You know, Hong Kong Attitude are having a hard time walking out of their base at this point, but they are still trying. They are still playing for it. Hongsuo is still looking for picks anywhere he can, but there's nobody up top, unfortunately, so he's just going to have to walk away from this one. J-Team have all the cards, but they are playing it at their own pace.
So taking a look at the builds here, we do have more of a carry-centric build coming out from Kongyue, going for the Gale Force this time around. And on the other side, Immortal Shield Bow from Eminem. He's still very far off from 2 items, and I honestly feel like he needs 3 in this setup if he's going to justify all the protection he's going to get.
Ooh. Okay, Lil V's going to get bursted, but actually Woody tags in. Mission and Hana were just there for moral support after the fact.
Yeah, really nice takedown from Woody right there. And
meanwhile,
I don't mean
Rest
to
is like, you guys done?
Yeah, I don't mean to smile in the face of Hong Kong Attitude's distress, but they really are so far out of this game that, you know, they're pretty much solely relying on cheeky plays right now to get them through this phase.
And they keep trying it.
I honestly feel like Lil V is too cautious of a player for you to ever get that. I feel like the one you want to go after is probably Rest. I know Rest can be incredibly crafty, but he also places himself in much more dangerous positions than Lil V. Lil V has been known to be an extremely cautious player. You almost never see him get a caught out like that.
And it really was a credit to Woody for getting in and helping save him. And Hongsuo, as you mentioned, he really is just playing his heart out. He's trying so hard to set up picks for his team to find a way back into this game, but they're just not finding anything. Well, I guess I'm not entirely correct there. They are finding something. Unfortunately, those things are wards everywhere in their jungle.
Yeah, J-Team already going to the dance hall against Hong Kong Attitude. They might regret it, though.
They're going to go for the fight. It's not enough damage by far, but they will opt into the engage, and there's the turn. Hana coming into this one. Rock separated from the rest of the team. Hana just throws down the ultimate and turns everyone away. Rest will finish off Rock, and that will be all they'll pull off from that. I think they could have chased a little further.
Yeah, they just want to turn back and assure the Baron. I definitely like this play a little bit more. Make sure you get the most out of the death timer coming in from Rock. And we have Woody playing guard duty on the top side as well. So very well done here. It's going to be completely uncontested. And I feel kind of bad to say this, but this game was really decided very early on. Like, Hong Kong Attitude's double kill and into the Herald play, which frankly didn't make any sense. Just put them in such a massive hole that J-Team could do whatever they want to. Like, if you're a Tom Kench, you really don't have much escape, and you lose your lane early on from a play like that. It's so hard to get back. Like, you're not built to actually come back from deficits. You're supposed to coast based on the fact of how much stats you actually have. And when you don't get on that train, you fall off early. There's just nothing you can do.
Yeah, it's such a tough situation to be in, and Hong Kong Attitude just keep trying to force a play because they know if they don't, they'll lose slowly. But they're intent on not making it last too long, Clement. They'll try to set that up. Doesn't happen. J-Team move away, and now they move towards the Mountain Dragon. This is for Seoul on top of the Baron. Hong Kong Attitude looking to come in. Blast Cone over the wall. Go for the steal. Not going to happen. And now the turn into the back line. Go the carries, and it's not going to do a thing for Hong Kong Attitude. It's just an absolute cleanup here. Rest goes very low as Hongso still hunts for him, but they just do not find it. Hongso, the last man standing, tries for a pick. Maybe can find Rest. Oh boy, flash forward, come on! Hongso, you gotta get one for your team! He goes in, Distort, can't find it, and the shield. Oh, and Mission seals the ace. Oh dear.
Rock is just cracking me up. You can tell, even when he's down and dead, he's on the dirt, and then he still flashes the FPX logo at the very last second.
Oh yeah.
He's like, you know what? I might not be winning this game, but never forget, you didn't make it out of groups in 2019.
Such a troll, man. Such a troll. Okay, here's Hong Kong Attitude really trying to force the play, but you can just see they're so far behind. There's not much they can do.
Yeah, they don't have the items on the backline to even get through Camille at this point, and you also have to contend with the Braum. So they're just in a position where they have no outs at that point. And honestly, you know, we might be laughing at Rock's expense watching him BM, but that's about as much as he can do this game. Honestly, that's the best he can hope for. That maybe Rest will get tilted.
Just maybe. If you keep doing it, maybe Rest will just run into you and feed you a kill. Maybe that'll happen. Oh boy. J-Team looking to close this one out here. Already have the bot inhibitor. And they're just going to go ahead and set up the 1-3-1 siege. Or maybe make it a 4-1. Why not?
This is pretty interesting because we actually do have the Hull Breaker coming out from Camille. This is the first Hull Breaker out of the PCS summer season.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
It's actually a pretty good item. I just feel like the scenarios where you actually want to use it compared to some raw stat item is very limited. Because it doesn't actually work that well in the teamfight scenario. So most people still go Steric's Gauge instead of the Hull Breaker for most cases. But, you know, if you're strictly in solo lane and you don't plan on teamfighting ever, it's actually a lot more efficient than a Steric's Gauge.
Well, and J-Team don't really have to teamfight as 5 right now. They're so strong that they can just muscle their way in on 2 lanes. And, oh my goodness, Hana's going even deeper than that one. They look to finish off Kong Ye, and he goes golden to tag the rest of his team in. Never mind about Rest not team fighting. It doesn't matter. They can still close this one out. Hana does go down, and Woody with an aggressive flash forward. They just want to end the game right here, right now. See if they can get it done. K falls. Rest getting himself a rampage kill, and Kong Ye having to dash his way back to the fountain to try and heal up. J-Team just playing with their food here.
Let's go!
Speaking of food, Rock's gonna walk, mission all the way back, and he flashes the emote at the end. Oh man,
that's a moral victory for Rock. He did exactly what he did for her. You know, the Tom Kench really didn't do anything this entire game, but that laser fountain take back, I think that makes it all worth it.
It's a swagger kill for sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, J-Team are going to close this game. So many minions on the board. Hongso is still not finished, and yeah, maybe they can't quite end it, but the teleport is about to come through, and they just are having fun with this. Why not? It's League of Legends. You're supposed to have fun. Despite what
Rock
solo
is trying very hard. Oh, he gets it!
Rock, he
The
got
shutdown!
one! Wait a minute! Is he gonna get two?
And the knockout
Oh, baby!
Is this
Staying
the comeback?
alive.
Hong Kong Attitude are in the house. They have finally arrived.
Yeah. I mean, they're staying alive. I'll give them that. I don't know how much longer it's gonna last.
This could be the biggest gold lead so far in the season. At it's already about 15k. But the teams are willing to fight it out. This is 1v4.
All right. Rest maybe getting a little too excited, getting a little too
I
hypey
think the
there.
tilt game is starting to work. That splice is
maybe you're
really,
right.
it's getting to rest. You know, you can feel it. He's starting to get off balance just a little bit.
And just in time. I mean, they're staying alive. They're managing to push back those waves. J-Team didn't quite end it. All right, we're going to get a replay of that.
Just really fun play coming out from Hana. He knows he's fed enough, and he found Kongyue early on, while Kongyue also used his ultimate in the meantime. So he's willing to go super ham on this, and he also has two members coming in from the left side. Lil V trying to do a doggo impression of the week 2 play earlier, trying to flash in. Doesn't really get the snipe, but it's okay. They still pick off the majority of the targets right here. And this is where I think Mission goes a little bit too deep. Rock gets that extra stack on him, walks back, and then goes forward for the play. Mission thinks he still has one more stack, but he forgets on the new Tom Kent, you can actually get the acquired stack with the tongue lash. So he falls to that play, and that is the triumphant comeback from Hong Kong Attitude. We are all here to witness it. You know, Hong Kong Attitude, they might look down and out, they might be behind a ton of gold, but they still have their spirits and they still have their emotes. They can definitely hold on. Maybe. Okay, probably not.
That counts for a lot, but this is 5v5. I think J-Team's done playing right now. Oh, meanwhile, Hana goes in pretty deep on that Hextech ultimatum, and they look to finish off K. And whoa, Hong Kong Attitude.
Where'd he go?
M with one. They look for Mission Hongsuo.
Is it
they
happening?
are trying to bring this back. Clement, they're going for it. In goes Hana once again, but they have a fountain. They don't have much of a nexus, but they're trying to keep it alive. And Hana says, enough with your nonsense, and ends the game.
I had so much fun that game. Honestly, you know, at a competitive level, this game was over once the Herald play was set in stone. 2 kills early on, plus the Herald. That's when you know this game's not going very well for Hong Kong Attitude. And I applaud the teams for, you know, having fun with the rest of the game. You know, I think we took out the surrender option. You know, early on in Season 4, you could actually surrender in LPL games. And this was definitely one of those games you would surrender in. But, you know, keeping the competitive
not if you're Hong Kong
there.
Attitude.
No. What you do is you hold on and you BM to the end.
Honestly, I love the constant flashing of emotes from Rock. He committed to the emote life, and he stuck with it to the bitter end. I think there were maybe a moment or two, just for 1 second, I let myself believe maybe they can turn it around, and then Hana was like, no, I'm taking the Nexus. Forget this.
My favorite BM was definitely the one where Hongsuo looked like he was about to get the kill on rest, and you saw like Rock was already dead. He was laying on the ground then, and he flashes the FPX as Hongsuo goes in, just trying to like rub a little bit salt into the wound.
Look over here,
and then Hongsuo still loses. Oh, that was so sad.
Yeah,
it was pretty funny.
Hongsuo. I mean, Hongsuo was like, there was no moment he wasn't sniffing for a kill. Like, he had the killer instinct the entire game. The problem was, as you mentioned, from the Herald play, things were pretty pear-shaped already. So Hong Kong Attitude, you know, I think coming into this game, it looked like from the standings, it looked like from the way they played, that these two teams would be very closely matched. But some really bad unforced errors from Hong Kong Attitude really just turned the game against them early on. And J-Team, they took a comfortable ride to the finish. I like that they played along with Hong Kong Attitude. You know, they were like, all right, we're going to have some fun this game. We're still going to win, but we're going to let you play League of Legends for a few more minutes. And at 30 minutes was when they ended it, and that was the story of it. All the objectives going in favor of J-Team.
Yeah, just beautiful draft coming out from J-Team here. I love the Rise counter pick coming in. You know, they got the superior bottom lane with the priority, with the Varus as well. So Hong Kong Attitude, they drafted themselves a lot of Sinner picks, but they also drafted these Sinner picks early on blind. So it gave a lot of room to counter for J-Team. And yeah, once they lost priority plus the top side skirmish, that was pretty much it. Like, they had no winning points on the map anymore. LeBlanc was getting pushed in. Camille's already won lane, and Aphelios was very far ahead. I'm sorry, Varus was very far ahead of Eminem on the flip side. So no winning conditions from Hong Kong Attitude. I don't think the idea of the draft was terrible, but they definitely didn't get the execution they needed. If you're on Graves, if you're on Tom Kench, you have to stay ahead the entire time, not make mistakes early game. And this is just kind of a GG go next. If you're in a scrim, you lose early, you kind of look forward to the next game. They made the most out of it. I was entertained. I don't blame Hong Kong Attitude at all. I do want to commend, again, Lil V for getting some snipes down. He was a pretty good Taipei sniper this time around. 9-1 and 6 in the scoreline, 30% of his team's damage. Definitely holding the fort down.
Yeah, he was doing exactly what he needed to do on that Varus, and able to finish off not only a number of kills for himself, but was able to stay alive, as you mentioned, playing incredibly safe, and even getting saved by his support a couple of times, Woody coming into the rescue, and it was kind of a dynamic duo. Really liked what we saw to J-Team. I think very happy to see how they move forward, but we are going to go on break before our next game. Don't go anywhere. The PCS will return.